Malonu Sositi Astam.
Good morning. I'm very pleased to see you. My name is Diana. Esu iš Škotijos.
Part of this conference, and do thank you for your invitation to come and participate. I have had a long-standing love of the Baltic states. Over 20 years ago, I was working in Latvia and was very curious about Lithuania in those days. So here I am with the honour and privilege of being in Lithuania and being a contributor to the Lithuanian Family Movements Conference. So I do thank you for your invitation. Standing for natural rights, let's save Europe together. The title of my presentation is The Rights of Parents in a Changing Culture. Over the last 24 hours, we've heard a lot about the changes in our culture. So as I continue, the rights of parents in a changing culture. So the aim of my session is to enlighten, to give some insight, to give some understanding of what's happening in our culture, particularly in the West, but perhaps how it's going to affect nations further east. To engage with you, to allow us to engage together. I've had the privilege of chatting with colleagues from Czech Republic, from Slovakia, from Poland, from America, and here we are engaging with one another, because as we work together, we're a greater force for good. To equip. So I'm going to give some background information that will equip you with truth, so that you can stand up courageously and wisely and engage in some difficult conversations. And to encourage you. What I've heard over the last 24 hours is the discouragement that Lithuanian people are feeling. They're feeling marginalised. They're feeling very humble. They're feeling overwhelmed by what's happening. And I hope that this conference, not just my contribution, but the contribution of colleagues, has been encouraging you that there is hope. We can make a difference. We can protect our children and our young people. We can protect the family. We can protect marriage. Parents, carers, grandparents, aunts and uncles, we have a God-given and rightful role in the nurture, in the health and well-being of our children and our young people. It's a God-given right and a God-given role. Yesterday we heard much about families. Paul presented much to us about families. As I was preparing this, I had a very broad title, and I had to think, how do I approach addressing such a crowd of families, of professionals of press, people who are concerned about the way things are going? And I realised what we need to think about is what is truth and what is lie, what is deception. There's very much discussion at the moment about what is it to be human. In the UK, there are moves to introduce robots into the care of older people. Robots? Older people need a human touch. They don't need a cold metal robot attending to their needs. What is it to be human? What is it to be a man and what is it to be a woman? As was mentioned earlier, I'm a member of the Scottish Family Party. And last year we went on a street campaign and we were asking, can a man become a woman? Equally, can a woman become a man? And as I went out to engage people in conversation, they were very dismissive. They just didn't want to talk about it. So what do you think? Can a man really become a woman? He can put a wig on and a dress on, but he really can't become a woman, can he? Or can he? So, truth versus deception. Issues around identity. Who am I? Where do I come from? What is my purpose in being on the earth? And as we'll hear, children and young people grapple with, who am I? What am I supposed to be? Mummy and Daddy expect me to be like this, but I want to be like that. Parents of adolescents, young people who are going through puberty, have a lot of difficulties coming to terms with who they are. And as we'll hear later, there are many social pressures saying a little boy who likes to play with a doll's pram, maybe he's leaning towards becoming a trans female. So the whole issue of identity. And terms like gender fluidity, gender dysphoria, sexualization, many of these things are impacting the health and well-being of our children and young people. Now, another truth. What is a family? Yesterday, we had a very, very detailed presentation from Paul as he was looking at same-sex marriage and the impact on children. And the outcome, the conclusion was that the best place where children can be nurtured is within a family where they're with their biological parents. So surely for Lithuanian families, that's a real encouragement to you when you are working so hard to promote happy, healthy families. The message is that all children do better within families where they have their mummy and their daddy. They have their biological parents. What is a family? Another discussion, and we've had part of this discussion in the taxi on the way here, the rule of the state, the roles of parents versus the state. Certainly in England and in Scotland too, we're seeing state control impinging on the role of parents. I'll speak a little about that in a moment. We heard from Hungary yesterday, where the politicians, the government, have got policies, have guidelines, have a whole community and structure set up to support the family. So in many ways, that's very good. The state is working together to promote healthy, wholesome families. The other side would be that a state is involved in dismissing truth, taking responsibility away from parents, the state taking over in education. In Scotland, we're very concerned about what children are being taught in schools. And the leader of our party, Mr. Richard Lucas, has produced this, Corrupting Young Minds. This is a very detailed document outlining what is happening in Scottish schools. 3-year-olds are being taught about masturbation. Pornography is being encouraged. Children are being encouraged to explore their bodies and develop some sexual sensations. It's being suggested that families can be 2 mummies and 2 daddies. May I just give you an example? I was walking down the street and I saw 2 ladies, one pushing a pram, one had her hand holding the hand of a 3-year-old, or watching a little 3-year-old. He had his hands in his pockets. And I said, oh, he must have been copying his daddy. And the lady said, no, this little boy has 2 mummies. I was quite shocked. It was my first encounter with same-sex family. So I said, oh, well, maybe he's been copying Grandad then, knowing that little children copy behaviour. If you have little ones yourself, you realise that they copy your behaviour. And the mother's response was, oh no, he's a little boy in his own right. My question was, a boy with 2 mummies, How does he learn what it is to be a boy child, a boy adolescent, a boy adult when he has two mummies? So I think, as Paul said yesterday, children need to have parents they need to have a mummy and a daddy. With their mummy, they're learning many things. Little girls are learning many things from their mummies. Little boys are learning many things from their daddies. But also these children are learning how mummies and daddies relate together, how they communicate, how they deal with difficulties. So children need to have their biological parents. Where do we find truth? Who and what do we believe? So I feel that in these days, in Lithuania, in Scotland, where I'm working, in the United Kingdom, in America, we all need to understand what it is we personally believe. So what is truth and where do we find it? I make no apology. I'm a committed Christian, and for me, the Bible is the truth which God lays out in the Bible. Some people disagree, but forgive me, I make no apology. I'm speaking from a Christian point of view. So, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. That is creation. God created male and female. And that was, I think that was something Father Grigors did say yesterday, didn't he? That, men and women are created by God. Two sexes, male and female. For this reason, this is referring to marriage now. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and they will become one flesh. That is our mandate for heterosexual marriage, isn't it? And as Paul said yesterday, marriage means that both partners are, both man and wife, husband and wife, are sexually exclusive. They have a lifelong, permanent relationship. And they also have public status. And what better environment to rear children? The second one, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth." That's procreation. Veronica from Poland stressed the importance of protecting families. So here we have the truth that I believe is in the Bible. We have creation, male and female, he created them. We have marriage. A man leaves his mother and father and goes and joins with his wife. And the third is procreation. Man and women, man and wife, husband and wife united together. That is the ideal environment for procreation, for the rearing of children. Very controversial these days, but I believe that's the truth. The next slide is a contact I would really recommend that you explore, investigate and look at. The Family Watch International is an international organisation. As it says, it's watching families. The lady Sharon Slater, who set it up, is a Christian lady, and she's passionate about wholesome, healthy, heterosexual marriage and healthy families, standing for the family worldwide. And as Lithuanian colleagues, friends, families, parents, children, young people, I really would encourage you to look at their website. I'm not sure if they've got Lithuanian translation. I can ask about it. I did contact them, and I'll give some information at the end of my presentation about their findings and what they're saying about Lithuania. Next one, please. So this is a message that is loud and clear. Families around the world are rising up. Loud, meaningful and courageous voices. That's my mantra to you today. Families around the world are rising up. Even we want to encourage families in Lithuania to rise up with loud, meaningful, courageous voices. Now, this is a video slip I'd like you to look at. CSE, Comprehensive Sexual Education. This is what is taking the world by storm. We have it in Scotland, we have it in England, we have it all over the world. There are some countries that haven't got it yet. I think Italy, Spain, I'm not sure if Poland has it, Lithuania not yet, but there's a real push to get this CSE into all countries, into all schools. It is a war on children. As you look at this, it may be difficult to understand it, but the graphics are very disturbing. So just settle back and just engage with this for 10 minutes.
This is definitely an attack. It will affect your child rearing. It will affect your education system.
This is instructions for the teacher in the classroom to ask her or his students, how do people express their sexual feelings? What is abstinence? And here are some answers. Oral sex, masturbation, anal sex, massage, holding hands, touching each other's genitals, saying, I like you. And what they're doing is equating all these things. Saying, I like you is equal to anal sex.
It is pornography. Men, especially on the House floor, did not want to look at. We couldn't show this on the television news, but yet we want our 4th grade children to be looking at this book.
In the name of sexuality education, children are seeing obscene materials that have been ruled by Congress and by the Supreme Court impossible to show to children.
An online CSE program for African youth called The World Starts With Me tells children that sexuality includes oral sex and masturbation. It then tells them it's their own choice if they want to lose their virginity. It shows children pictures of naked girls and boys in various stages of development, and then asks them to point out differences in their private parts. Parents likely will never know, as it is all done online away from home.
They have elementary students as young as 9 years old. Then they teach them how to wear a condom. And they have this plastic genitalia, and they even have young girls. They're teaching them how to put a condom on a male genitalia and boys how to put a condom on a women's genitalia without the knowledge and consent of the parents.
They're giving them handouts, negotiating sexual encounters with other students. For example, there are statements like this: can I take your shirt off? It makes me hot when you touch me here. Is it okay if I take my pants off?
Where we in Latin America, we still have a lot of poverty. We have communities that don't have fresh water, that don't have electricity. Focus is completely shifted from basic needs. They get comprehensive sexual education without the consent of parents, taking and deconstructing the family.
My brother Luigi and I had an opportunity to go to the United Nations and give a speech on the UN floor. I told them how Planned Parenthood was passing out a booklet for HIV positive youth at the United Nations called Healthy, Happy and Hot. This is for the kids who have AIDS. It teaches about sexual pleasure through masturbation with same-sex partners and even if you are drunk.
This pamphlet called Healthy, Happy and Hot tells young people that you have the right not to disclose your HIV status to a sexual partner if you're not comfortable. It also tells young people that are HIV positive that if they decide with their partner not to wear a condom, that's their decision.
The World Health Organization standards for sexuality education in Europe actually suggest that children ages 0 to 4 should be given information about masturbation and given the right to explore their gender identity. For ages 4 to 6, children should be taught about same-sex relationships and respect for different norms regarding sexuality.
The interests of organizations like UNFPA and IPPF is to get parents out of the picture and to radicalize and sexualize children.
UNFPA has tried to convince my country to change our positions on issues such as reproductive rights and comprehensive sexuality education. Madam Chair, does the UNFPA think it can do this because Nauru is the smallest member state of the United Nations?
The Nigerian government was actually told by the Western countries that if they do not give in, that they will be denied foreign aid.
On page 89 of a UNICEF-published Sexual and Reproductive Health Manual, UNICEF listed situations in which one can obtain sexual pleasure that included sexual responses directed towards inanimate objects, animals, minors, and non-consenting persons.
In the context of the Sustainable Development Goals that determines the agenda for the next 15 years, the voice is very, very biased. It's just International Planned Parenthood Federation and their affiliates have a direct influence on the outcome documents, on what is established, what is negotiated at the UN.
Some of the objectives of the UNESCO Sexuality Education Guidelines include teaching children at age 9 about sexual stimulation and the definition and function of orgasm, and at age 15, that both men and women can receive sexual pleasure with a partner of the same or opposite sex. The It's All One curriculum, also promoted by International Planned Parenthood, reveals the multiple manipulative tactics used to indoctrinate and sexualize children through CSE. Like other CSE programs, It's All One claims, among other things, to be evidence-based, comprehensive, human rights, gender-sensitive, and culturally appropriate education that will increase young people's responsible decision-making, to reduce adolescent rates of pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. It's All One, however, like most CSE programs, is really just cleverly disguised abortion rights, sexual pleasure education masquerading as human rights, gender, and sexual and reproductive health education. It aggressively promotes abortion. With over 112 references to abortion, It's All One has an obsessive focus on sexual pleasure, mentioning sexual pleasure 62 times. It promotes multiple sex acts and instructs children on how to stimulate themselves or their partner to orgasm. To explore their readiness, children fill out a worksheet that infers children are ready to have sex when you are feeling sexually attracted to the other person and when you're feeling comfortable about telling the other person what feels good sexually. It teaches that human rights encompass sexual rights, including alleged rights to all persons to sexual expression and the right to seek sexual pleasure. Hooking children on sex is a multi-billion-dollar business for Planned Parenthood and other similar organizations. This is because children, or prospects, once sexualized, become Planned Parenthood customers dependent upon their services. Comprehensive sexuality education programs are disguised under many names. They may be called comprehensive sex or sexual education, education on human sexuality, reproductive health education, information on sexual and reproductive health, family life education, teen pregnancy prevention, rape prevention, anti-bullying programs, HIV/AIDS prevention, and sometimes even abstinence or abstinence plus education. CSE programs usually falsely claim to be age-appropriate, evidence-based, healthy sexuality education that will prevent teen pregnancy, sexual abuse, STDs, and HIV.
One of the handouts that concerns me the most is called the Genderbread Person. They teach that gender is a spectrum, that you can choose to be whatever you want. You could be all female one day and the next day feel like you're neither female or male.
Frankly, it's confusing. It's mental molestation. We're confusing these kids as to what they are.
From a medical perspective, when sexual freedom is the priority, then sexual health is going to suffer.
There are laws in Oregon where children as young as 15 can get taxpayer-funded sex changes without parental consent. You can't have an aspirin at school without parental consent. However, a student could make these life-altering, permanent decisions without their parental knowledge or consent.
Sexual rights, sexual education movements began with Dr. Alfred C. Kinsey. Kinsey actually had pedophiles measure with a stopwatch how many children could achieve what he called orgasms within a 24-hour period. Today, comprehensive sexuality education is based on this philosophy that children are sexual from birth, created by Kinsey.
Say no to CSE! Say no to CSE!
We've got to stop it. We've got to use everything at our disposal. We have to stand together to stop this attack against our children.
And they have all this funding and this organization, but we know that if we stand together, we can do something for the family, for the children.
We stopped the Kinsey sexuality education program in Croatia.
It is time for parents to say, no, my family is mine. My wife is mine. I am hers. Our children are ours.
Band together and find ways to stop it from entering your country.
Men have to rise up, defend their family. On matters sexual, the fathers have got to stand up. Say, you have no place talking sexuality to my children. We resist it, even with our lives, because that's what life is all about.
It's happening on our watch. If we don't do something about it, it is all of us that carry that guilt.
To learn more and to sign the petition to stop comprehensive sexuality education, go to stopcse.org. Together, we can and will protect the world's children.
All very shocking, I'm sure you would agree. So children and young people are being exposed to content and images to question the value and morals of parents. Part of the video was suggesting that children are being taught behind closed school doors. Much of this education is going on without parents' knowledge. And a big aim is to promote sexual rights of children. Surely parents have rights and responsibilities. Do children really have sexual rights? Should children have sexual rights? Sexual rights relate to a person's sexuality, their sexual health, sexual orientation and sexual identity. But we've said that a little boy is born a boy, a little girl is born a girl, or a female and a male. God created them male and female. Their sexual identity is clear at birth. They have a biology that is either male or female. They have a biology that is a boy or a girl. An adolescent boy, an adolescent girl. The whole agenda, this word ideology. Now, what is this ideology? It's about a study of ideas. But what have we said earlier? Truth versus lies. Much of what is promoted in this Stop CSE, in the comprehensive sex education, is lie. It's not founded on truth, science, or biology. So, the truth is, my family is mine. Our children are ours. Family is at the heart of God's best for the nurturing and rearing of children. Strong families make a strong nation, and the aim of all this ideology is to destroy family life, thereby destroying the power of nations. One way to destroy a nation is to destroy its families. So I would urge you as Lithuanians to stand up to fight for and protect your families. Truth. So what is the truth that you hold so dear? The three things that Father Grigor said yesterday were the family, culture, and faith in God. They are the three things that are going to really enable you to move forward with courage. male and female. Male and female have two very distinct and complementary roles. Is anybody familiar with this book? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. It's a very good read. What it says that men and women have different communication styles. So if you're married and you have a problem, if you're a man, it's likely you go and hide in the garden shed. If you're a wife and you have a problem, you want to talk about it. So how is it that a transgender man trying to be a woman, when he communicates as a supposed woman, does he talk or does he go into the garden shed? So there are distinct differences. Male and female are very different. They were designed differently, but have complementary roles. They have very different emotional needs. They have very different ways of behaving. Consider the behaviour of little children, boys and girls. Very often the little girl is happy to play with a pram and dollies in the corner. Little boy wanting to play more actively, climb trees. But sometimes little boys prefer to play with dollies' prams and spend his time with little girls. That is not an alarm that this little boy has got some gender confusion. This is just a sign this little boy is learning about friendships. He's learning about different types of toys. He's not showing the exhibits of early homosexual behaviour or gender dysphoria. But sadly, in the UK, little children in primary school, which is before the age of 10, if they are observed to be playing with girls' toys, the teachers are thinking, aha, he's got some gender confusion. And if that little boy then says he wants to wear girls' clothes and wants to be called Mary, the teacher will encourage that. And that is a secret between the child and the teacher. The little boy is being coerced almost into getting some gender confusion. A more satisfactory management of that situation would be just to ignore it. If a little boy wants to wear dead girls' clothes, that's fine, but you do not make a big issue of it. You affirm that little boy, that he's a little boy, he's very handsome, he's very active, rather than encouraging him to adopt the opposite sex. So certainly we need to be alert to what's happening in our schools. A very worrying statement on the 6th of May, issued by the WHO and the United Nations. Little children are sexual beings and must have sexual partners and begin to be sexually active as soon as possible. Kindergartens and nurseries and schools must teach children to develop lust and sexual desire, learn masturbation, and learn about same-sex relationships. Well, what nonsense. The idea that children have rights, they have a gender identity, but that doesn't match up with their biological sex. So as I said, this is all about ideas. Very disturbing news from the United Nations and WHO. Andreas referred to them yesterday when he was speaking of globalization, didn't he? So where did all this come from? On the video we heard about Alfred Kinsey, didn't we? And his declaration in the 1950s was that all sex is good sex and there's no harm in children engaging in sexual activity. And he declared that children are sexual beings from birth. What nonsense. Another name that features in the history of sexuality is John Money. He was a psychologist from New Zealand. And the story goes there were a pair of boy twins who needed to have circumcisions. They needed to have a loosening of the foreskin on the tip of their penis. One little boy, one baby, had a very successful operation. The second little boy, it was disastrous. He ended up with a penis that was gangrenous. Gangrene means dead. So the parents were despairing. What do they do with this little boy who's got a penis that's just not healthy? It's damaged. At 8 months, they took the twins to see John Money, and he had a very simple answer. Well, we just castrate, we take off the penis and all his private parts, and you bring him up as a little girl. Sent the family away. They thought this was the answer. They were happy. They had a boy and a girl. They had David and they had Brenda. However, the story broke in the 1990s. So this happened in the 1950s. So 40 years on, 1997, John Money's research was published and Brenda came out. Brenda came out with his story. He'd found life very, very difficult as a child in school. He couldn't adopt this female role, this little girl. He was wanting to play games with boys. He was wanting to climb trees. There was something inside of him, his male hormones, that were not allowing him to perform as a little girl. Even though his parents were saying, oh, you're a little girl, you're wearing dresses. This little boy's life was dreadful. I have notes about it and I've lost them, but it was a disaster. So later on, his twin brother committed suicide and Brenda / David committed suicide too. The message is that you cannot socialise a little boy into being a girl. Money's theory was that if you socialise a child before the age of 2.5, you can change their life. They can live in the opposite sex. Absolute nonsense. The third reference there is After the Ball. And this was a book that was written by two men, a PR expert and a psychiatrist. They devised a strategy to try and change attitudes to homosexuals. It was around the time of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. So their idea was to change public views on homosexuals from promiscuous sexual minorities seeking greater opportunities to influence to equal citizens demanding equal rights. Next one, please. So where did all this come from, this idea? It's come from WHO. All this has come from these organisations that are trying to push it all globally. Next one. The purpose is to indoctrinate children, to sexualise children. And if you remember, there was a reference to these become consumers. If these people become confused by their identity, they'll be wanting cross-sex hormones, they'll be wanting surgery. They're going to be consumers of these reproductive health services. Next one. And again. Another one. So the whole meaning and purpose, I would say, is to destroy the family, but also it wants to change social norms. They're trying to change our culture and to enforce children's rights. Moving on. Another one. Right. So the positive thing is that 30 years ago, there was a study started looking at this comprehensive education, a very detailed assessment. And the outcome of this detailed assessment was that it's not effective and it's harmful. So CSE, comprehensive sex education, is not effective and it's harmful. There's little evidence of it being effective. It's harmful, and the whole message of abstinence is the best message. Again. Next one. That's right. So here, the whole message is that these programs are doing harm. So, what is the best approach to protecting and preparing our children and young people for the future? So, do you have any ideas yourself? I think I've encouraged the whole idea of family, a secure, stable, loving family with open communication, encouraging your daughters, they're beautiful, they're feminine, and their boys are handsome and they're active. So encouraging the gender, encouraging the sex that your children and grandchildren have. Listen to them, watch them, and be very alert and very vigilant to what messages they're coming home with. A story of a little 5-year-old who came home and said, why haven't I got 2 mummies? A little boy comes home into a heterosexual family asking his mummy, why haven't I got 2 mummies? So parents need to be equipped with the courage to say, our family is like this. These are our values, these are our morals. They are different, but we are living to the truthful model. A big important area here is protecting your young people from social media. That is a huge intrusion into their lives. And social media has lots and lots and lots of unhelpful, damaging material. So regulating what your children, grandchildren are watching and have access to on social media. Children and young people deserve to be protected from harmful ideologies. Next one. This is just a word and some guidance about school. Are your children safe at school? Are your grandchildren safe at school? Should I be involved in their education of our relationship, sex education? Yes, 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 you should be. And if you need to see policies, you need to also be just asking, who is teaching my child? In Scotland and in the UK, schools are inviting third-party agencies to come into schools. And they're often not health-based, they're not biological-based, they're using the ideology. So they're the ones that are promoting this bad news. So I have got information about safe school and how to help parents. Right, next one. It's perfectly normal. If you have teenagers, it's perfectly normal to feel confused about who you are. There's a surge of hormones. There can be difficult and challenging behaviour from teenagers. They might retreat to their rooms and be uncommunicative. Peers, school, social media may encourage them to develop a confusion about who they are, thinking, I might be gay, I might be a lesbian. Roles of parents and grandparents is to affirm the child or young person's biological sex. So what is needed? Lots of patience, space and time to listen, lots of outdoor activities, time to let off steam, allow them to talk. Another message, families around the world are rising up, and we want Lithuanian families also to rise up, don't we? A loud, meaningful and courageous voice. Just an ongoing challenge in the UK, in Wales. In Wales, comprehensive sex education has been introduced now, and parents have no right to withdraw. Children from the age of 3 to 16 must receive compulsory sex education. Little children of 4 are encouraged to masturbate. There's exposure to pornography. There's much that is unhealthy for young people, children and young people. A group of 3 mums started a campaign against this. In December 2022, 500 parents took the Welsh Government to court for a judicial review. The judge said it was okay. They're putting up a very strong appeal. Last week, those 3 mums went to the Houses of Parliament and spoke to MPs. There is growing momentum against compulsory sex education in Wales. So, people working together can make a difference. Some resources for parents. I have brought quite a few things from the Scottish Family Party and also something called the Schoolgate campaign. There are many resources online, and I'm certainly very willing to be a contact person to support families. Again, next one. Say no to comprehensive sex education. My mantra is that families, individuals, you speak out with a loud, meaningful and courageous voice. Next one. So, together we can protect the safety and innocence of children and young people. The big thing is, within the family, keep open communication, really investigate what child's been taught in school. So the effectiveness of a group is greater than the sum of the parents, of some of the parts. So it's saying that we're much more effective as a group rather than individuals. I think I'm about finished, if that's... I've gone on rather a long time, haven't I? Is it helpful to just talk a little bit about what's happening in Lithuania? Shall I do that? So as I said, back to slide 6, the Family Watch International. They have done an investigation into what's happening in Lithuania, and I have information which, back again, further back, keep going back. Keep going. Keep going. And a bit further. That's it. So this organisation, I contacted them personally and asked about what was happening in Lithuania. And there are moves to to encourage early sexual behaviours and encourage sex change. So that's when children are confused about their identity, and they're trying to encourage them to think about, well, you might be a boy, you might be a girl, or create more confusion. Parents are saying they want to be taught about what it is to be a family. So the push is to get sexuality and gender confusion there, but Lithuanian parents are saying, no, we want to be hearing about a family and involve and have conversations around what is a healthy, wholesome family. There are some concerns about the Istanbul Convention, so that's something that needs looking into. In October 2022, there were recommendations that Lithuanian schools introduce life skills. So parents need to be asking, what's included in this life skills? It sounds very untroubling in a way, but life skills, they could sneak in some sex education, some unhealthy information. Important point, they're going to introduce third-party organisations to train teachers. So we need to be very aware of who are these people. Are these lobbyists or are they trained health professionals? An important partner in all of this is the EU, and we heard about that yesterday. Sex education is mandatory in most of the EU states, except Lithuania, Spain, Italy, Croatia, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania and Bulgaria. So those are countries that it's worth you networking with and learning from and banding together. There's a very unhelpful video called From Brooklyn to Vilnius. It's an activist journey through Lithuania, and that's a very powerful video that is quite harmful, but that's circulating. So I think that concludes my presentation. Rather detailed, but I trust it's been helpful to you all. Thank you for your attention.